Welcome back. Well, our next big story, it hits close to home, literally. From making calls to browsing the internet, telecommunications have become a necessity in everyone's lives. But now this essential service just got a lot more expensive. Earlier this week, the Nigerian Communications Commission approved a 50% tariff hike for telecoms operators, citing rising operational costs. While telcos argue that this adjustment is long overdue, the public reaction has been anything but understanding. The Nigerian Labour Congress has rejected the move outright, describing it as insensitive amidst ongoing economic hardship, with inflation already eating away at disposable income and the minimum wage struggling to keep pace with rising costs. This decision feels like yet another blow to the average Nigerian. Meanwhile, businesses are bracing for higher operating expenses, which could trickle down to consumers. The big question remains, who really bears the brunt of this hike? Now, joining me to unpack this critical issue is Frank Eleanya, senior tech writer, TechCabal. Frank, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Grand. So let's first talk about the impact on individuals when it comes to these increases. We're looking at a 50% increase in with the data or network calls, all of that. How's it going to affect one personally first? Let's start there.
Well, it's going to maybe add to more pressure to the pressures that that people are already feeling. Inflation has done its thing, and then you've got naira devaluation that has also come in, to increase the pressure that people already feel. However, adding airtime cost to it might also, get a lot more people shaken. But you and I know that browsing and being online has become like a primary need for a lot of people.
Yeah, next to air.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people wake up in the morning, the first thing they want to pick up is the phone. And for them, having to pay more, will feel a bit like, oh.
But will we even notice? Will we really notice? I mean, up until now, nobody has really cared about how much I'm paying per minute or per second.
Yeah.
Because voice is rather relegated now.
Exactly.
Data, people just go buy data a week, 5 gigs. They're not really paying attention to how much they're spending. So how significant will that addition of 50% actually affect us? Will we see it tangibly?
Well, if we look at what the peg is, the range that the NCC set is between 6 naira 40 kobo to around 50 naira. So the operators are at liberty to set their price in between those ranges. So if, for instance, they were charging, say, 11 naira per second of calls before, right now probably they're going to adjust maybe to like 20 naira to 30 naira.
So it's a significant increase.
So it's somewhat significant, but from the perspective of the operators, it's not enough, and all of that discussion is a combination of things that we've carried over from previous administration, from previous indecision, steps that should have been taken a long time ago that hadn't been taken. But here we are. It's unfortunate that is people who are having to face 1,700 naira exchange rate that are facing it. People that have to deal with 33% or over 33% inflation that has to deal with it.
Let's not forget fuel price.
Exactly, that too, So it's unfortunate, but this call should have been made a long time ago. I mean, if it was made, say, in 2016, if it was made in 2017, even though there was a recession in 2016, but it wouldn't have been so remarkable as we're feeling it now, because then we were talking about exchange rate at a much lower.
So it's like a salad of everything bad happening at the same time.
Exactly.
The hikes, the electricity, the this, that, and then this now again.
True, but it was long overdue.
It was long overdue. So, and I hear you when you say that. But when you consider the fact that service delivery has been absolute rubbish lately, is that a good call? You laugh, but it's true. Is that a good call by the operators? Because, let's face it, they need funds to actually run these operations.
Yes.
And if raising the tariff is going to provide those funds, then that's justified then, isn't it?
Yes. Actually, why the quality has reduced is a function of the fact that there's not enough revenue that they're making in the market to be able to deploy the infrastructure that they want. If we're to go back to, say, 2001, when the market was liberalized, all right, the tariff was around 50 naira to 74 naira. Then it moved on to around, it kept dropping to, in 2015, the price went down to around, say, 10 naira till 20 naira. And then in 2016, it dropped further to 6 naira to 9 naira, all right, to where we are right now, where it's around 6 naira to around 11 naira.
What were the forces responsible?
You know. So
competition or what?
it's competition, really. In 2003, when Globacom came into the market and introduced the per second billing, you know, it forced everybody, you know, to like do the same thing. And so everybody started crashing their prices to attract more people to their networks, you know, and with more investment, with more deployment as they were going. And if we look at the period between, say, 2008 to 2016, the economy was relatively stable. The exchange rate was not so outlandish as it is today. You know, so they could still make a little margin while still, you know, expanding across the country. And the population was also an attractive thing for some of them. You know, so doing that helped them a lot, you know, to say, okay, we can take a quote, but we can expand the reach. So while you're expanding the reach, you're earning a little bit more. But then it's gotten to the point where you can't keep doing that. It will look like you're throwing money away while you're trying to expect the windfall to come the next day. And that windfall is not coming anymore because the economy is not strengthening itself. It's not getting better. Yes. So, and the cost of things aren't the same way that they were before. If we're to look at, Nigeria's had about 4 recessions, and also the Naira has devalued at different intervals. What that meant was that a lot of things that they would have bought, say, if you were to order something, because all the equipment that they use are imported. Now, if they were importing it at $100,000 in 2001, if you have to count the difference in exchange rate now, they're probably paying around maybe $200 million to import the same thing that they did in 2001 at 100,000. You know, so how are you going to carry that cost? Also knowing the fact that you are facing issues around.
So what you're saying is it's justified.
It is.
But it's just bad timing.
It is. It's bad timing.
But it's justified.
It's justified.
There, I got you to say it. So now, we've talked about the personal impact. What about the impact on business? Let's talk about data. How will this affect businesses? Most businesses in Nigeria, and I dare say around the world, actually rely on data. With the tariffs going up, how would the consumer, would this be passed on to the consumer, and how much of an effect or impact would that be on you and I as consumers?
I think in the meantime, it's going to be a little bit stressful for the businesses. But if the telcos are able to maybe make the investments in infrastructure that they're supposed to make, first of all, you need improvements in quality of internet. You're having a meeting online, it's buffering. Sometimes you can't even get through. You know, so all of that costs businesses a lot of money. You know, but if you can fix that with the extra money that you've got, over time the business is not going to feel it. It's not. It's going to be like, okay, we paid a little bit extra for this. I mean, why are people going to Starlink, for instance? A lot of businesses now are buying Starlink tools and all that. So it's because there's a promise of high-speed internet, you know, and whether you get it or you don't get it, but there's a promise that you're going to get it. But the price you're paying for it is premium. You know, but for telcos, which is a lot more wider reaching, you know, so you're able to do a lot more, you know, with a lot less than what you're paying maybe for a satellite internet, you know. So in the meantime, you're going to feel like, oh yeah, we are going to budget a little bit more than what we did last year. If it was 1 million we did for internet, we're going to do 2 million this year, you know. But if you're paying that 2 million for improved quality, improve latency, improve reception and every other thing and all that. You can build a lot more. You can do a lot more innovation around that. You can actually just predictability.
So this will slow down businesses or innovation, like you said, whether we like it or not, some way or the other. Let's talk about the implication when it comes to policies and also the politics of it all. The NLC has stepped in and they've said that, no, we can't have this. 50% is too much. What's the government thinking? They've, however, called for a boycott. A boycott of what? And how's that supposed to work? Help me out here. How does a boycott work for telco? It's okay if you're confused too.
Well, I listened to it and I was like, you want to boycott unless you're saying you don't want to be online again. If you say that, that's understandable. I don't know how you plan to do that, because that also means that you're saying you don't want to remain competitive globally or something. Exactly. You don't want to connect to the entire world, you know. And what that also will mean for them is that if you're not growing at the pace where the world is growing, of course, there'll be redundancies. Companies will have to lay off, of course. But, I mean, a company would not want to work with somebody who's not connected to the internet. So what does the boycott mean from an NLC perspective? They will have to interpret that for themselves. But I think that is that initial reaction that everybody gets from.
Yeah, I think you should say it in the local parlance, initial gra-gra. Let's make that a global word. It's the initial gra-gra you're referring to.
So it's the initial thing, initial gra-gra that everybody does, you know. But I think that there's a lot of communication that the government needs to do from their own end to say, this is why we're doing this, and this is the benefit, this is the incentive for you. Take, for instance, the government wants to do a 90,000 kilometer of fiber, and it's looking for $2 billion. That $2 billion is not going to come from the air. Although the minister said he's got some institutions that are willing to invest, but those institutions are not going to invest if the local investors are not coming on the table. So if the local investors are not happy, no investment happens. Even the XPV that he's been talking about, the special purpose vehicle he's been talking about, it's not going to happen. So he needs the local investors to be on the table. He needs the foreign investors to come on the table. Now, when that 90,000 kilometer of fiber is deployed, it means that everybody gets to have a lot more in internet wherever you are. You can do a lot more. Even the NLC can, you know, do.
But this has to be a government initiative for this to work.
It's in between for me. Sometimes when they say it's government that needs to do it, because I've never really trusted that government can do anything.
It's okay, you can say it again.
Maybe the way it will be constituted, if it's led by the private sector.
Or PPP.
PPP, you know. So if it's them driving it, I would like to have a lot more people who know about telecom driving these things than just people who score some knowledge somewhere coming from, you know, that don't know what the terrain is about, you know, but people who actually been there, who've handled it and knows how it works. And then you're giving them the leverage, every incentive that they need. What are the incentives? You have to deal with the issue of right of way. If you're not getting all the governors on the table to say, we have to have a uniformity in right of way, then all of this is already dead on arrival. I'm still waiting for the plan, what the plan is to deploy those 90,000 kilometers, because we live in Nigeria, you know. It's not a walk in the park for the federal government to just say, I'm going to
Let's not fool ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to Akwa Ibom to lay kilometer of fiber because I'm the federal government and all that. Chairman, governor, all of them are looking for revenue from it. So you're not going to be there to monitor those who are laying the fiber and all that. So there has to be something that says, okay, we've reached an agreement with these governors to say this kilometer of fiber will not be disturbed by anyone. And then indiscriminate vandalization of infrastructure. Security. I know we've heard the CNI gazetted, that's the Critical National Infrastructure Executive Order gazetted, but the implementation is always where we are lacking behind. It was done last year. I don't know if you've ever heard that somebody was prosecuted for cutting a cable. I've not heard before. No. So if at this point we're not having those discussions yet, then the confidence you want to bring into the market is not.
So apparently the entire apparatus is flawed, whether we like it or not, as it is now.
Exactly.
So what would it take? This is a question I don't need you to answer for now, because I want to get to one other answer. What would it take for that infrastructure to actually be optimum? And I had asked you initially whether it was a government initiative or a private sector initiative. Either way, you still have to grapple with security issues when it comes to vandalization.
Yes.
So it's a mess. It's a salad. It's a mess. It's a telecommunications mess of salad, if that makes any sense. Now, I'm going to go back to the NLC and the efforts to try and help the citizenry actually live through this moment here. What would be the best approach to this, coming from the NLC? If a boycott sounds almost impossible, how can they get the telcos or the authorities, the NCC, to actually bring down the price without suggesting something that sounds, in quote, as ridiculous as a boycott? Forgive my use of the word ridiculous, but it still doesn't make any sense how this boycott is going to work.
At this point, I don't think there's any going back on the increase. It would have been easier to say you can get them to reduce prices if the government, first of all, had addressed the issue of taxation, right? The telecom industry pays around 52 taxes, and these 52 taxes come from the federal government, comes from states, comes from local governments, and is insensitive, for just about anybody to wake up in the morning and slam a tax on one infrastructure or whatever. Now, that's beyond that. You haven't also addressed...
Finish that thought. Are you saying that these taxes, perhaps, if they are relaxed, it would help the situation? Is that a suggestion?
So, yes. If there's a uniformity in the taxes, let's say, one thing that investors like is predictability. They need to know that if I come into your village, I will pay 10 taxes for a period of 5 years. So I don't wake up 1 year after and you slam 15 on me. 2 years after, it's 20. At that time, 17,
so you're implicating the government here.
There has to be an institutionalization of the tax system, or even a review of what used to be the... I know that they have a discussion going on right now by Taiwo Oyedele and his team, but that discussion is taking too long, if you ask me, because there was a lot of, we're going to bring this out, we're going to do this, and all that. Last year, there was, before the end of the year, something's going to happen and all that. But why isn't it happening at the pace it's supposed to happen? We are at a point where it's almost like everything should be an emergency in Nigeria. Every policy should be done immediately. Just like Donald Trump is stamping everything.
Yeah,
saying
exactly.
200 executive orders and all that. You should be at that kind of speed. To say.
Be careful what you wish for, because there was such speed in execution when it came to removal of subsidy, and look where it got us. So be careful. What you wish for, you just might get it.
So that's. But then also,
I wanted to stand on business, as the kids would say these days, on one bit here. These taxes are imposed by the government. These taxes are arbitrary. These taxes harm the businesses, I mean the telcos. If these taxes were relaxed, would we need to pay that 50% extra? The answer is?
So we probably may not be able to. They may not come out to say, government, we're going to increase taxes or whatever and all that. Then there's another thing also that would not have made us pay, as in do this increase.
Okay, because we're trying to help the NLC here to suggest.
If the market was fully decentralized, there was the liberalization that was done in 2001.
Explain, please.
However, the tariff regime is a bit complicated in the sense that the NLC set the price range between 6 naira to 50 naira, for instance. Then you have to do your pricing between those ranges. Now, if you set your price, say you're a telco, and you set your price, say, at 12 naira today, and then in 5 years' time, and you decide, you've seen how the economy is doing and things are not moving very well and all that, you decide, okay, can I increase from 12 naira, still within the same range? Say, can I increase from 12 naira to maybe like 30 naira or maybe like 20 naira? You need to have an approval gotten from the NCC. Now, the challenge here is that those approval or that approval doesn't come, in fact, they rarely come. It takes years of bureaucracy, back and forth with, that's when you now see the minister meddling into the NCC work and the NCC going back and forth with you and all that. So it takes years and years and years for that to happen. So because of that, so there's no food, it's like price control. The government controls what price you give to the subscriber. So it is not a good place for them to be. So if they were able to like, okay, we have seen where the economy was going into in 2016. We can just adjust maybe in 2019. It would be insensitive for them to come to 2025 and say, we want to increase prices.
Now, if the government has given this approval for a 50% increase because of the running costs and service provision for the telcos, meaning that they need more money to give us excellent service, how are they sure, or what mechanism would they have in place that will ensure that this 50% increase that we are paying as consumers is definitely going to be used to improve services? Do they have some sort of way to monitor or regulate?
Yeah, I think so. I think first of all, there is an NCC annual data that comes out every year that tells you how much has been expended in the industry, you know. And I believe there are ways to monitor all of that. You can say, okay, how much fiber has been laid? How many fiber has been laid maybe in Kano State?
What amount of progress has been done?
Yes. So has been laid in Kano State, in Akwa Ibom, and I'm aware of some telcos that are trying to deploy around South-South. Between Akwa Ibom to Port Harcourt, you know, especially with the coming in of the submarine cable of, I think Meta, yes, to Africa, you know, so some amount of infrastructure is going to go in there, you know, and also there's still around 180 terabytes of capacity on the submarine cables that we have not fully utilized. Now, you can start monitoring how much of that or how much of improvement is going on when those cables are now being brought in terrestrially, have been brought into land, reaching homes. People are saying, okay, yeah. And from people's conversation online, whether they're making complaints to the FCCPC, what are they telling the FCCPC? Those are also ways for you to monitor what improvements have been made. The FCCPC should not just be about when I am feeling bad, I go talk to them. They can also be their agency where if I'm feeling very good, I go to them and say, please help me commend this telco that's doing something great. You know, so if those conversations have started to improve, there's some significant change, you can then start to say, oh yeah, we're seeing this happening and other. But of course, there's also a tracking system that tells you so amount of fiber has been laid in this state and it's been activated, because it's not just enough to lay fiber here. You also have to do, as in put internet on it. There has to be a service going on it.
Very interesting, like a barometer to test exactly where we are at any single time. So let me give you a chance to play Apostle Solomon here regarding the tariff hike. Is it here to stay or not? What advice would you give to consumers? Would you say, don't worry, the NLC would take care of it? Or would you say, brace yourselves, it's here to stay, we're going to have to go through this one?
It is here to stay. It is here to stay. The operators say they actually wanted 100%, you know, but the government said they wanted to create a balance, so they gave 50%. I think what we might also expect is that there might be some further increases if the economy doesn't improve, if things don't get back to maybe some normalcy soon, you know. But I think what people should expect more is the improvement in quality of service. You should be able to then hold the telcos accountable. If an MTN or Airtel or Globalcom or Nigerian isn't giving you the kind of service that you expect, you can actually just report them to say, I mean, I'm paying this amount of money and they're not giving me the kind of service that I expect. So that's citizenship. That's you holding them accountable, and then they'll be able to see that, okay, what's happening at your area, let's come do something about it. You know, how responsive are they to what people are saying concerning the quality of service that they are given them. I'm in conversation with some of them, and I know that what they keep saying is that we do want to improve quality, but we just need to be incentivized to do these things, and that's why the tariffs are here to stay.
Well, Frank Eleanya, thank you very much for your very detailed and interesting contribution on this conversation. Of course, he is the lead writer, senior writer at TechCabal, and I've enjoyed that conversation, and I'm more enlightened, and I'm hoping that our viewers are as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you.